Hello everybody and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm really excited to be chatting to Jamie Davis, who's the author of loads of different fantasy books, and he's also one of the leaders of the Author Nation trade show, which is coming up in a few weeks in Las Vegas. Now I'm really excited to go to this trade show, this conference, because it's got some amazing speakers and we're actually going there to go and speak and have a look at what's going on, and I can't wait to share with everyone what we learned there. And he's one of the organisers of it, so I'm really excited to be able to speak to someone who's got that big name in the industry. Now, in this show today, we talk a lot about how networking can be really, really important for your author journey, and how by having the right people around you, you can really start to build your online brand. And, branding is something we talk about a lot in these episodes. So it's been a great episode. We also talk about writing different types of fantasy books and how you can flick between different types of genres when you're doing your writing and still keep your voice consistent throughout all your books. It's an absolutely fascinating episode. Jamie's someone who's had absolutely loads of success in the writing world, so it's really interesting to hear his insights. And I will let you get on and enjoy the show. Hi everyone and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. I'm here with Jamie Davis, who's the author of over 55 fun fantasy reads, with the last one actually being finished this morning in the coffee shop. And he's also the conference director and one of the organisers of Author Nation, which is a conference in Las Vegas, which I'm actually going to for the first time this year. So I'm looking forward to chatting about that. Congratulations on finishing your book this morning, Jamie.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's always a great feeling to finish that draft and get the whole story down. Now I can let it percolate for a couple of days, and I'll dig back in for another pass before I send it to the editor.
Yeah, brilliant. So what was the book you finished this morning?
It was called Summer Break Fae, and it's the fourth book in my Uncle Chip Saves the Fae series. It's fun urban fantasy, basically.
Nice. Now, you've written quite a wide range of fantasy books, I would say. How would you describe your style?
Well, I mean, you introduced me as author of fun fantasy reads. I really try to keep my books light and fun. I also have written some stuff in the sci-fi genre in Michael Anderle's Cartharian universe. But even that is fun, in kind of, things that focus around family values, found family themes. So all of my books tend to generate and revolve around that. Yeah.
And have you always wanted to write in those genres? What was it that drew you to those genres originally?
Well, I think I didn't really know that I wanted to write in those genres, but when I started writing, a lot of my themes were really about found family and the people that we find, that we locate and kind of gravitate towards in our adult lives, that formulate the core of our friend group, our closest coworkers, if we're in a job that facilitates that kind of thing. And I found myself continually writing in those kinds of directions.
Right. Okay. Did you always want to be a writer when you were growing up?
No, but I've always been a storyteller, and I think that's the key for me. I don't think, I've talked to a lot of writers that have said, oh my gosh, I wanted to write books since I was 5. And, I don't think I ever had that kind of realization, but I always told stories. I always made up stories, had imaginary friends, had imaginary games that I was playing at any given time. And so those imaginary stories that I had always come up with, eventually became stories I told my kids and as they were growing up. And then when I started writing, someone actually dared me to write a novel with some of the stories I had accumulated. And that's where my first series sprung from, was participating in NaNoWriMo back in 2014. And I wrote the core of the first book in that month of November that year.
So NaNoWriMo is kind of like a challenge that you can do to get a novel written in a month.
It's National Novel Writing Month. It's really international now. Yeah. And there is an organization that you can check out to find tools to help you move along. But basically, it's the core of the challenge is that you challenge yourself to write 50,000 words in 30 days. Yep. And since November is one of those 30-day months, it kind of worked out that people can write, and in the month of November, average about 1,600 words a day.
Yep.
And if you do that, at the end of the month, you should have about 50,000 words of a story written down.
Wow. Yep. Now, I know a lot of people that have done that challenge, and a lot of people, in fact, have actually started their writing career just by having that first book, then being like, well, actually, this, either it sold well or, they got a lot of, they just enjoyed it. So loads of people I know have done that NaNoWriMo challenge.
Yeah, I was lucky enough that first book that came from that initial challenge was really kind of caught on in 2015 when I got it edited and then released, and people were like, "When's book 2 coming out?"
Yeah.
So something that had taken me almost a year to really put together and finalize and polish, I then turned around and wrote another book, and was surprised at how quickly the characters generated another story in my head. And so I was able to go forward and continue the series. That series is now 10 books long. I've got the next book planned to write probably this winter. And so, yeah, that book kind of, like every year or so, another story pops into my head for those characters. So I'll keep writing it. It's about supernatural paramedics. So it's easy to come up with ideas for what they encounter in their daily lives.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. So do you have a background in medicine?
Yes, I'm actually a retired paramedic. I'm also a registered nurse and worked in the ER for a short period of time. Eventually, I became a full-time author, and that allowed me to retire from being in the medical field. But my love for healthcare and taking care of folks has never gone away. So when I started writing fantasy, it was a no-brainer for me to take the idea of fantasy storytelling and my love for medical care and put the two together.
Do you think having that knowledge about medicine and your background in nursing and paramedics, do you think that helps you with creating scenarios for your books?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I don't like put real patients in the stories, but but I do have those core regular kinds of patients we run into. The patient with chest pain, the patient who has an asthma attack. It's kind of fun to think about mythical creatures and what kind of creature would encounter this particular medical problem, and how would that figure into their magical nature, and then have it all come full circle when the paramedics show up and have to take care of them. So it's fun.
Do you find that you ever get people who are like in the medical profession get in touch to be like, oh, that's not quite right, or that's not how you do that sort of thing?
Well, actually, one of the reasons I like writing that series is I try very hard to get the medicine right. Right. So, because that's something that irks me. In fact, it drives my family nuts. I'll be watching a TV show or a movie, and I'll be like, well, that's not how that happens. So when I do things in the book, I try to make sure that the medicine is correct, whether the dosages and the procedures and things are all factually correct as to how they'd actually be in a medical setting. And so I get a lot of doctors and nurses and paramedics who read my books and enjoy them because they don't get taken out of the story by something that's wrong. They are able to fully immerse themselves into the story I'm telling.
Yeah. I used to be an undertaker, and I have quite similar experiences when I see stuff to do with funerals on TV, where people just do that cliched thing. And people are always asking me, like, is this true? Is that true? And I'm like, no, hardly any of it is true.
Yeah, and you know what I mean when I say, it takes you out of the story for a moment when it's wrong. So it's important for me to try to get that right as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. Now, at the beginning of the chat just now, you said that one of the genres that you write about is urban fantasy. What do you mean by urban fantasy? Because that's a term that some people have said, but maybe it's not quite clear.
Well, urban fantasy has a lot of similar terms. It can also be contemporary fantasy. It's in my sense, it's fantasy taking place in a modern world. It doesn't have to necessarily be an urban setting.
Yeah.
But it's taking place in the modern world so that people have cell phones and drive cars and have electricity and all these things. Really, I think in a lot of ways, Harry Potter could be considered urban fantasy in a lot of ways. It's in the modern world. They have modern things around them, even though they tend to gravitate towards using the magical world mostly.
Oh, I see. Like compared to something like Lord of the Rings, where it's like all wizards and swords.
Right. That's more high fantasy, and that's where the authors come up with and generated a world out of whole cloth, and that's why high fantasy books tend to be a lot longer, because a lot of time has to be spent building the world, explaining what the trees look like. Why are the trees orange? And those kind of things. Whereas in my world, I don't have to explain why the light comes on when they hit the switch. Yep. Or how a cell phone works, or how to drive a car. They just know, people just understand. They got in the car and started driving. That's all I need to say. I don't need to describe how a car works.
Yes, right.
So that's one of the advantages, I think, of writing urban fantasy, and that gives you a little more freedom to then come up with how the magical world wraps around the modern world and exists in between the aspects of the modern world. That's the fun part for me.
Yeah, no, I get exactly what you mean now. So do you have a particular writing process that you try to follow to build these sort of urban fantasy worlds?
Yeah, I on the Pantser Plotter scale, if you've heard that before, I don't think it's one or the other thing. I think it's more of a continuum. I think I lean more towards the Pantser side, where I'm really, I don't plot a whole lot. What I tend to do is write myself a sentence or so per chapter of a story beat, where I say, this is the opening scene at home with the main characters, and then chapter 2 is where they're going to go next, and just a sentence about it. But I don't really do a whole lot of detail. I let that detail flow out of what the characters do in the moment as I write the scene. So I'm very much a pantser in that regard. In fact, today I thought there was going to be another chapter that came after the one I was writing this morning, but I ended the book. It was the right thing to do. The book ended very well in the end of that chapter. It didn't require me to do another let's return all the way home. It was okay to say they were heading home now. And that was kind of the difference between how I write my stories and it just, I found that the plot that I thought I might need, I didn't need.
Do you generally make an outline for yourself about where the plot's going to go and what beats you need to hit throughout the story?
I do. So I'll write out I'll have, an average book of mine that's about 60,000 words or so in urban fantasy, would be about 30 chapters, about 2,000 words per chapter. Yeah. That's my average. And then I will write a sentence per chapter, roughly plotting it out. And it gets vaguer and vaguer as the book goes on. So, I know that the last 3 or 4 chapters are going to be action sequences. So sometimes even, the last 3 chapters might be big fight scene 1, big fight scene 2, big fight scene 3. And I just leave it at that because I know there's going to be, I kind of have an inkling in my mind of what the final conflict is going to be like, but I don't know how they're going to get there or what exactly the moving pieces are going to be for that scene when they arrive. So
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. You write so many books. Are you only writing one book in one time, or do you work on multiple books at the same time? And do you have a system to sort of make sure you're being productive all the time with that writing?
I have author friends that write multiple books at the same time, and I applaud them. I think it's crazy, but what works for them works for them. I can't do it. I really need to keep the story that I'm working on in my head. In fact, if I start getting ideas for another book or another story, I will often quickly write them down so that I can kind of offload them from my memory. Yeah. So that I know that they're okay and I don't have to keep ruminating about them because I need to stay in the moment for the book I'm working on.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So throughout the year, so at the moment you're on the you've just finished up writing that book. Would you go straight on to writing the next book in the same series? Until
what I'll do is I'll split my day up because I do work full time and I try to treat it very much like a job. I'll usually spend the morning going through and working on my next editing pass, which will take me 3 or 4 days to get through and do an editing pass on the book before I send it off to my editor.
Yep.
At the same time, I'll be plotting out book 5 in that series.
Right.
So in the afternoons, I usually spend some time sitting down and thinking about, okay, here's the general scenario that I'm putting my characters in for this book. What's going to happen? What are the big conflict points that are going to be, and what's the big main conflict going to be at the end of the book? And I kind of put those pieces together in a large format. And then, like I said, I'll break out 30 chapters and kind of plan out where these things are going to fall in the book.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you. Now, you've written all these books, but you also have to make sure those books sell as well. So what marketing tactics have you used that have been really effective for you?
Well, I think, one of the most underrated marketing tactics is generating and maintaining your own email list.
Yeah.
So I've been working hard at that for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
And have a pretty decent email list of about 3,000 dedicated, 3,000 people that are pretty active on my list. Yeah. I clean up my list constantly, so I've probably thrown out 3 or 4 times that amount over the years of people that just never clicked on anything. And if they're not going to click, I don't need them on my email list, because I pay my email subscription service per email subscriber like everybody else does.
Yeah.
So keeping that number as low as possible, but as active as possible, can be very profitable over time. And it's about building the list slowly. I generally build new lists with each series so I can keep track of where people came from. And that's a slow process. It's one reader at a time. And I try to engage with people and answer emails when they come in and all those things. So I think that's number one, the most important way I use to communicate with readers and then get information about new books to them so that they can go out and buy them. Other than that, I do a lot of the things that many authors do. I have a social media presence, so I actively work there. I do engage in Facebook and Amazon ads to keep the first books in my series churning so that they're always getting new readers into the series and moving through. And then, I just last week had a BookBub featured deal, which is the granddaddy of all, marketing email newsletters out there. And it's, that's always very profitable for me to pay for that service.
What were the results of that BookBub?
At the end of the first week, it was a 200% ROI.
Wow.
And it's still churning because, of course, it's a series. It's the first in a series that I put on sale. And so they're continuing to read through and order the books. So I'm still seeing increased sales on subsequent books in the series. So I'll tally it by the end of the month, but it wouldn't surprise me based on previous BookBub deals I've had that it would be 300 or 400% ROI for the month.
For people that haven't used BookBub before, how does it differ to some of the other lists out there?
Well, their list is large and very high quality. So they work hard to maintain and refresh their list over time. It's not inexpensive. This particular BookBub featured deal was just under $500 for the emailing to their list of my book that was on sale for 99 cents. However, it earned out in the first day.
Right.
So,
wow. Okay.
That book plus the extra sales of the other books in the series earned, by the end of the day, had earned out. That series had earned more than $500.
Yeah.
For the day.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've used BookBub a couple of times, and I've had really good success with it. There are other lists as well which are really good, and I think Written Word Media have some really nice ones too.
And Written Word Media is great. I was going to say their bargain booksies, the free booksies, and their other services are great. I'm a big proponent of them. I think they're the next tier. They're number 2, but also very good. I wouldn't call them second best. I just call them another alternative and usually easier to get. The featured deals, I usually get about 2 or 3 of those a year on one of my series, and it's always a happy accident when one of those hits. So
yeah.
they're very selective about who they pick. So
yeah,
you just have to keep trying, keep putting your books in, keep applying for new ones, and it's just a numbers game.
Have you tried to use any specific like fantasy mailing lists?
Like Book Barbarian is one that I've used in the past that does well. Robin Reed's e-reader News Today are a few that I can rattle off the top of my head. They're all not quite as good as Written Word Media and definitely not as good as BookBub, but they do have a positive ROI generally.
Yeah.
Based on the price that you pay. I mean, the difference would be, I paid almost $500 for a BookBub featured deal, but for like one of the other lesser ones, I might only pay $45 for a mailing to their list.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I only sell maybe 30 or 40 copies, but that's enough to earn back what I've paid for.
Yeah, yeah, especially in the long run, because you've got a series and people can buy the following books. Yeah, exactly. With the sorry, I just lost where I was in the.
That's okay.
Questions. Oh yes. So you mentioned just before that you did Amazon ads. How do you approach that with writing fantasy books? Because are there particular keywords that you try and target for your books, or do you find that people are searching for your name?
So I'm not as active in running my Amazon ads as I am on my Facebook ads. What I generally do with my Amazon ads is I run ads for the first book in a series in all its formats as a sponsored deal, and I run the auto ad campaign where it targets the specific genres and specific similar books to mine. So I have a list of similar authors, similar books, and those are my keywords for that. And then I also do the auto ads because Amazon generally has a pretty good idea of what my series are like and who would like them at this point. And so they're pretty successful. I'm much more successful with my Facebook ads, and so I pay more attention to them. The Amazon ads kind of run in the background and just kind of generate a little pretty steady trickle of sales.
Yeah. I find with Amazon, sometimes you need to have those ads running just in order to keep your organic rank being maintained, because you need to sort of show Amazon that you're serious about your books being put forward.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll have to get you set up with Publishing Informants so you can check it out, because we've got
I'd love to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some great tools. I think they'll work really well for you. So going back to the conferences and talking about Author Nation. Now, I'm really excited. I'm going to Author Nation in Las Vegas. Going back a step, Author Nation is a conference for authors in Las Vegas, and you're one of the organizers of it, and you're actually the conference director. I'm really excited about going. Could you tell us a bit about Author Nation?
Yeah, Author Nation is, I think, the premier conference for indie authors. It sprang from another conference that happened before it, the 20 books to 50K Vegas conference. Yep. That conference kind of closed down because the organizer had some health issues and needed to just kind of step away. So Author Nation was the conference that took over the contracts that conference had. That original conference had in Vegas for these events. And so we've kept a lot of the staff and volunteers on board to maintain that kind of sense of community that was existing there. And so it really is, you're going to have over 1,000 indie authors from all over the world there. They're going to be gathering in one place to all learn the same things: how to write a better book, how to market a better book, and how to be successful in whatever way success means for them, because that's a very much a moving target depending on the individual you talk with. And so we're hoping to offer opportunities for authors at all levels. We're going to have 6- and 7-figure authors there that are going to be having high-level conversations in certain rooms that will be open just to them. And not that it's going to be exclusive, but there is kind of like a mastermind that's going to happen on the side with these 6 and 7 figure authors. But the advantage is they're going to be 6 and 7 figure authors there talking about what they've done, presenting, attending the conference, sitting next to you, standing next to you in line so you can talk to them and have a conversation and network with them. One of the things that makes these types of conferences so important, and I tell people this all the time, is most of being an author is sitting alone writing. And so it can be really hard to find other people that are doing what you're doing and commiserate a little bit about it. But if you can go to one of these conferences and meet somebody who's achieved something that you've wanted to achieve, and you can have the conversation, how did you get to where you are? And what is the number one thing I need to do to get me started in that direction? You can have that conversation, and the people we have at this conference and the culture that is part of this conference is such that the people are happy to answer that question.
Yeah. I've interviewed a number of people on this podcast already, such as Kevin J. Anderson and Mark Lillard Lefevre, and everyone talks so highly about the conference and how it's like such a great community. I've already been invited for beers for one evening after the conference. But if you wanted to say you're a new author, maybe you want to get the most out of the conference, because obviously it costs an investment to get there and things like that. What's some tips to get the most out of the conference?
Well, I'll tell you, the number one tip is to follow the conference guideline that is going to be emailed to you when you sign up for the conference. So everybody in the conference gets access to a planner sheet that'll help you plan out what your goals are for the conference. That's important because everybody needs to kind of have a plan. There's no way you're going to be able to attend the 150 plus sessions that we're going to have going on there. Even though we're recording them and making them available to the attendees after the fact, there's just no way to assimilate that kind of information. So you really need to have a plan, is look at where you are in your author career and where you want to go next in your author career, and then build a plan to do that. And so there's a planning sheet that all our attendees get access to print out and fill out and do for themselves, to take to the conference with them. The next thing I would recommend people do is look at the conference sessions and figure out which sessions are best for you. And then at the end of every day of the conference, our managing director, Joel Solari, is going to have a session where he's going to get on stage and start talking you through how to review your day and how to look back at what you've learned that day and how it fits in with your conference plan. Yep. And so the tools are built into this conference to help every person at every level achieve some part of the success they're searching for.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm really, really excited about going. Are there any talks in particular you're looking forward to seeing, or any talkers and speakers?
Wow, there's so many. Craig Martell is going to be talking about planning for your author estate. So, something all of us need to think about is if we're generating intellectual content and intellectual material that will live on after we're gone. So what are we doing to protect that so that our families can use it effectively as a legacy to live on? So I'm looking forward to that particular conference topic. There are always several topics on leveraging assistants and people in an organization to kind of build out your author business a little bit. And so I'll be looking forward to a couple of sessions on that as well.
How important has networking been for you in your author business?
It's been huge. And I would say that it's one of the things that a lot of authors miss out on if they don't attend a conference. Even a local event in your community for local authors is so important to get to know other authors, especially in your genre. And the reason for that is that I can't possibly write enough books to keep my readers happy all year. I just can't do it. I've got readers that will read one of my books in a single day. Yeah. And then they've got 300 more books they plan on reading this year. And what am I going to do to keep them interested in what my next book's going to be, one of the things I do is I share similar books with them that are from authors that I know and have networked with. And they do the same for me. And so by building out your network and just talking to people and meeting other authors, you can start sharing each other's books. We're not really in competition with each other because readers consume more than one book at a time. And so we can certainly provide them access to other great books by authors we know and have become friends with. Yeah. And those authors will share our books in turn when our book comes out. And by doing that, you can really continue to build your readership over time through helping other authors build their readership over time.
That's really good advice, because I think a lot of people see networking as some kind of abstract concept. They don't see it as something that is practical that needs to be done, because they think, I'm just writing books, I don't need to speak to other people. But as you've mentioned, knowing people, especially in your genre, that can really help you out to grow your fan base, because if they're interested in something similar to you, chances are they're going to buy your books later on down the line. And you never know how that's going to grow your band.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've made a connection. I mean, you mentioned Kevin J. Anderson. I've known Kevin probably for 5 or 6 years now, and he's just the greatest, most generous person I've ever met. And he's an author that has written in the Star Wars universe, has written in all of these different mega franchise universes, because he's such a well-known author. Plus Dune and all the other things, right? So, and Kevin's just an ordinary guy when you talk to him. He's just another author and is happy to talk author shop with you. Yeah. So I think sometimes it's easy to get starstruck when you talk to somebody is a super successful author. But you have to remember, they started out just like you with one book and no readers.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice. So I think it's really, I'm really looking forward to conferences. I've done lots of conferences just generally, especially around Amazon and selling on Amazon and advertising. But I'm really looking forward to really getting into the author conferences, because it looks like a really great crowd. So I'm really excited about Author Nation.
Yeah, and plus there's going to be a lot of fun
things going on. There's
going to be after-hours genre meetups. No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, let's. I spoke over you then. Let's do that one again.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, because I just chatted over what you were saying. What did I say? Oh, yeah. So I'm really looking forward to going to Author Nation. I've been to lots of conferences and got lots out of them, generally. But it's my first time going to just an author conference, especially, at least one in America anyway.
I'm sorry, Teddy, you dropped out there at the very end. I heard you say you were looking forward to going to an author conference, and then I didn't hear what the question was.
Oh, that's okay. I'll do it again. So I'm really looking forward to going to Author Nation, because I've been to lots of conferences in sort of the Amazon world and especially in the advertising world, but none specifically for authors, especially not ones in America. So I'm really excited about going. Are there any sort of meetups or any ways to meet those people that you think should be in your genre?
There are after-hours genre meetups that are going to be happening as part of the Author Nation conference every day. There will also be some fun, just generally fun activities. There's going to be a variety show that's being put on by Sound Booth Studio, which is one of the premier dramatization narration audiobook companies out there. And they're doing a variety show that authors have contributed work to. So that's going to be a lot of fun one evening. We've got Story Wars national competition finals happening on Wednesday night at the conference. And on Thursday night, we have the brilliant indie creator Kevin Smith coming in to speak, which should be just an awesome final keynote for the event.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. If people want to get tickets, where's the best place to find out about those?
Yeah, there are still tickets available, so jump out there and get yours. You can go to authornation.live. All the information about the conference is there.
Great. We'll put the links to that in the show notes as well. Now, what are the just as we come to the end, what are the projects you're working on at the moment and the ones that you're excited about?
Well, I'm finished. I just finished this book, so I'll be moving into book 5 in the Uncle Chip Saves the Fae series. That's titled Sophomore Fae, and I'm looking forward to that. And then I'll be really, I'm not going to start writing too much on that because the next month and a half are really focused on bringing the conference together. I really have to kind of put my author brain on hold for a little bit because I'm really going to be down in the nitty gritty of making sure the conference comes off 100%.
Yeah. What's going to be your day-to-day job when you're there?
I'm the guy that makes sure that you don't notice anything's wrong.
You're the shield.
I'm the guy that basically is making sure, running behind the scenes, all the volunteers, with a great team of volunteers that we have there, and making sure that the speakers are all happy and that the rooms are set up properly every day for the different things that have to happen at the conference. All the AVs working, all that stuff falls underneath the conference director hat. So I'll be scrambling around doing a lot of things. However, I will say this, if you see me jogging by, wave, say hi. I will stop and talk to you for a few seconds, at least to get your name and shake your hand. So I urge people to come over and say hello to me. Just understand I might have to skedaddle pretty quickly because I've got to get on to handle something that needs to be dealt with.
No offense.
Yeah, no offense. So, but that's all part of it. And I'm really looking forward to a great, successful conference this year.
Great. So thank you so much for that. There's been loads of really great tips, especially around the newsletters and how you do that networking. I think that's been a real help for loads of people. If people want to get in touch with you or to follow you around anywhere, where's the best place to do that?
You can find my books at jamiedavisbooks.com. And you can find me on Facebook under Jamie Davis Author and Jamie Davis Books. So that's pretty much the best way to find me online.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for today. Just last time for the final question, what's the book you recommend that everyone should be reading?
Oh, the book that everyone should be reading. Let me see here. I pulled it up. I'm going to suggest a series of books for indie authors. It's the Successful Indie Author series by Craig Martell. Yep. It's a 5-book series that includes things like reliable strategies for marketing, become a successful indie author. There's release strategies, collaborations, writing compelling fiction, and pricing strategies. They're all great books. They're available. You can get all 5 of them, I think, for like $16. So yeah. That's a great series. Craig's a good friend of mine, and he's just all about giving back to the author community.
Yeah, I've interviewed Craig. He's amazing. Those books are really easy to digest and short, so really good place to start if you're wanting to get into self-publishing. Yeah, thank you so much for today. That's been really helpful. Looking forward to meeting you face-to-face in Vegas, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing you in November.
Thanks. See you later.